Data Masters. Unleash the full potential of your company with no-stress expert analytics strategies.
Welcome to the next episode of Data Masters. My name is Wojtek and this is Daniel. And today we are going to talk more about how to approach a data project, what you need to know before you even want to start with data, and how to use the framework that we developed in your own company.
Yeah.
What is the problem there and how do we approach it?
So to visualize the problem, I have prepared a meme, which you can see on the screen right now. It's a very popular meme and showing basically a CEO who has seen some news about new generative AI model released by OpenAI. And he wants to have it in his company. He wants to basically use it right away. He wants to implement it and basically extract business value out of it. The problem is that he's trying to make 5 steps at one time, and he's missing few important points and few important steps before you can even start thinking about such projects.
Yeah, because it's not like you can buy it, right? It's not like you go into the store with AI solutions. I mean, sometimes it is, but there are some narrow edge cases there. But basically, you cannot just buy it like a phone and you start using it. It's not even like it is with software applications, right?
Mm-hmm.
You buy it, you start using it, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have it in your company, if you want to be data-driven, it's taking a lot more, right?
Yeah. So now to go to some more concrete framework of how to think about it. What I always like to show to our clients is this a nice pyramid scheme from which I found in one of the articles from Kastiko Zirkov, but I don't know what the true source is, so sorry for that. And it basically shows how to lay out the foundations for any sort of data science / data analytics capabilities in your company. So maybe let's look at it, right? Let's see and try to look at the structure.
Yeah, it is important, right? I mean, for the people to understand what are the stages and like where they are at the moment to plan their next initiatives. Like you need to be aware of what is going on around you first to plan the right actions. So yeah, let's discuss it. Let's make people aware of what it takes to reach this top level of data science, right?
Yeah, so first thing, surprise, surprise, you need to have data.
Yeah, everybody has it, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, but there are few additional conditions you need to fulfill to really be able to say that you have the data in the real shape, right? So first thing to say is that you need the data to be really clean and high volume to start thinking about advanced analytics project. But first and foremost, you need to have this data available, right?
So it's like, for example, you've got this big factory, you've got all of those different machines, all of this machine logs something.
Yeah.
You've got like plenty of data, but can you use it? Like, not really, right?
So how I like to think about it is you can ask yourself a question: how much time does it take if someone asks me to get this specific data to really be able to provide it, right? How much time is it? Is it 15 minutes or is it 5 days, right? So
yeah.
if it's 15 minutes, you are probably already somewhere higher on our pyramid, right? But if it's 5 days or 2 weeks, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have data in the right shape.
Sure. So basically, we are on this first level. Data is dispersed. You cannot do much. You know that you have it. Sometimes you can look at some malfunctions, maybe, but generally you cannot do much about it, right? So yeah, let's go to the second level.
So the second part is that it's really simple. You have it somewhere, like you said, dispersed. You need to move it, right? You need to have some sort of orchestrator, some additional layer on top of all the data sources you have that will in automated and in automated way gather and collect the data into one specific structure source, right? For example, it can be a data warehouse.
Yeah, so like, for example, you've got your HR data, you have your finance data, you have some data from your different applications that you use.
Yeah.
They all have their databases, right? But if you want to do like a proper reporting, you need to have it all in one place. And I guess it's hard to say what kind of data do you really need.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you need to prepare for the future use cases as well. So you obviously need to think about like what are the use cases there and what data you need to acquire. But basically, you need to acquire as much as you can when it is not a problem with your infrastructure, for example, to be prepared for those use cases that are going to come, right?
Exactly.
And we've got this loading thing, and we've got two approaches, right? Basically, they're most common ones, and ETL and ELT.
Yeah, so next step is about transforming the data, but there are two approaches there. You can either transform the data on the go, which is basically called ETL, because we extract, transform the data and load to your primary warehouse before. And this is more traditional approach. This is the approach that was popular back in the days because the infrastructure was basically more expensive. So you didn't want to store a lot of data that you found is not necessary. But nowadays, this storage is more cheaper. That's why we switch T and we have the ELT because we can afford to store the data that we are not really sure if we need it now, but we have that comfort of potentially use it into the future. And a simple example is even aggregation, right? You have some sort of sensor data that is collected on a minute granularity. And 20 years ago, you would probably aggregate it to some higher frequencies. You would go to hours or days just to save space. And today, with how much storage costs, you don't really need to do it. You move T to the end of the process, and
but sometimes you need to think about it as well, right? I mean, if you want to go into the ELT approach, sometimes there are different like policies. You need to think about where are your different business units located, where are the policies between different governments, like for example, storing data in US, storing data in EU can be different. So it's all about this data governance, data literacy, and all of your policies. Right now, we are not going to cover it in this episode, but this is something that you need to have in mind as well when you are gathering all this data, like what data you can have, you can store, and what data you cannot, because it's personal data, for example, and you cannot do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there you have some data, right? You store it together. You can start doing some first analysis there, right?
You have it in one place.
Yeah.
Let's say you have some sort of application, but now you can analyze not only the data from backend of your application, because now you have it all linked. You can cross it with your finance transactional data. You can cross it with your some sort of customers demographic data, etc., etc. So now this is the place where you can start thinking about some basic analytics, tracking KPIs with time, because now if it's automated and structured, it's possible to visualize it in a structured way. Just now you can you can do these sorts of things.
Yeah. So basically, we can start talking about having BI applications, about this reporting, about advanced analytics, and there were already a couple of steps that we needed to take to get there, right? So I think it's important to understand that you just cannot do it straight away, but there's some preparation needed. And the bigger the company is, the more business units you have, those first part would be harder to do because you need to gather data from all of those different sources, right?
Yeah, obviously it will be hard and probably also can be expensive, but that's necessary, right? That's necessary if we want to go even the next step, one step up, to think about some sort of machine learning to algorithms or some A/B testing. We want to think about more complex models that require a lot of clean, structured historical data to do some sort of prediction. Just now, and remember this meme, right? Just now, you can start thinking about it.
Yeah, so this is our cherry on top. Data.
Yeah.
Science,
I will start
ML.
with learning to start with, with the foundations.
Yeah, and maybe that's one other thing that when you want to do it, sometimes you need some data from external sources, right? We haven't covered that, but sometimes you need to think about those use cases that you need to buy some data from somewhere and store it as well. But this is kind of a data source, right?
Yeah, sure, but you need to integrate it, right?
Yeah.
If you want to use it then in some sort of productionized system, if it's external data, you have additional external dependency, but you need to have it integrated into your warehouse or wherever you store the data.
Okay. So we have this framework. We know how to get to AI, which takes a lot of steps.
Yeah.
But then you need to frame it, right? You cannot just start doing it. You need to you need to think about those use cases, about ROI, about other stuff. You need to already have your use cases in mind. So maybe let's go to the framework that we proposed on how to structure your whole data initiative, right?
Yeah. Just one thing to add here. If you look at this pyramid again, it's mostly about technical aspects of implementing the projects, right? But there is this assumption even below the collect step that wherever you are heading towards will bring you value, right? Will give you an ROI, and it's worth spending.
Yep.
And we love this pyramid, but we think that in some sense, especially from the business perspective, it's not complete, and that's why we propose a framework that is covering the technological part, but is also covering the first steps before how to set up this data journey.
Yeah. So basically, our data to value framework that would help you to bring impact to your company and think about how to bring value from your data initiatives.
Yeah. Let's look at our data to value framework, and try to keep the pyramid in your memory, because this framework is a different perspective, but also an extension of this framework, right?
Sure.
When you look at it, we have 5 steps here. And 3 of them are mostly technological / implementation related. And the problem is that most companies start from that step, right?
Yeah, we said that even some of them start in the 4th step, right? Already the AI solutions. But usually when you have some experience, you only start with the 3rd one.
Yeah, exactly. So they start from technology. But what we propose is to start from really deep assessment of what are the current status of your company, what is the current infrastructure, what are the data sources, what are the key stakeholders, key metrics that drive your business. So I know it sounds like consulting gibber talk, but it's really important part to set up your project up to speed and to then expect some reasonable outcomes, right?
Yeah, because I guess sometimes it's hard to say like which way is the most profitable for us. What are the solutions that can bring us value fast without a lot of investment? And I think we need to think about those low-hanging fruits first, and we wouldn't be aware of them without doing the proper assessment, right?
Exactly. So this is what we propose to do first.
Okay, so we have those 2 steps, right? We have to assess, we need to know where we are. And based on that, we need to create this business roadmap. You mentioned those KPIs, and I think it's very important because we need to start measuring business. We need to know like what branch of our business is going to be impacted by the solutions that we are going to create, right?
Yeah.
And we need to understand like whether that's a cost lever, whether that's a profit lever or anything else. But I think it's important that we break it down and know what are we focusing on with the data initiatives. It's kind of our data strategy that we need to create, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, the assess step is pretty straightforward. But remember in last episode, in the conclusion we said focus on ROI, right?
Yep.
That's why the second step is the most important. The how to the framework and the way of looking at prioritizing the use cases and prioritizing different data initiatives to maximize the expected outcome, right? That's why we deep dive into that even further, right? We are on the step 2, but there is a way of thinking that from the value-based perspective, right? So, for example, so let's say that the CEO of e-commerce approaches you, and he has some budget for AI on data analytics implementation, and he asks you, so Wojtek, where would you start, right?
Yeah.
How you think about it is you need to think about his business. What are the key levers of his business? And looking from that perspective, like for every company, it's revenues and costs, right?
Yeah.
So just to and I'm going to show you the one branch of this value tree, the one branch that you can go. But in reality, you need to cover your whole organization and do this sort of assessment, right?
So I guess you have the revenue streams, you have your costs. You need to break it down, for example, and think like what is going on under, and identify the different domains that you can tackle with this initiative.
Exactly this. So we are saying costs, right? One of the biggest cost buckets in e-commerce is marketing spend, right? So this is our domain that we are focusing that we are focusing on, and typically in that domains you have a key metrics that drive the effectiveness of that domain. And in marketing, this metric is called ROIS, which stands for return on advertising spend, right?
Yep.
So this is your value lever. The better you are at ROIS, basically you directly affect the profitability of your business, right?
And basically that's already your KPI that you have to track, right? And
Exactly.
how you kind of measure your success.
Yeah. And for this for all value levers, you can have some solutions, right? You can have some approaches how you can improve it. And in that case, we can, for example, let's say one of your solution is to optimize how the money on advertising is spent, right? So this is your solutions that need to be developed, and under that you go next step, you go down that way, and
so what can be like a solution that can solve it, for example?
So for example, in this case, your use case would be to create marketing mix model, right? That would analyze and historically how you were spending on your money on advertising, and then you could use that model to optimize this spend and directly affect this KPI, right? Another thing can be your promotion spend, right? Your e-commerce, you have your marketing team, you are sending some discounts. But you also can optimize how well you are doing that, and it is also directly related to your marketing KPIs. So, for example, a clear use case here is to apply uplift models that can improve your kind of targeting and the response to your marketing campaigns in the discounts area, right?
Yeah, and I guess you can have a lot of those different use cases, and you need to think about all of them and identify which you think are going to bring you the best return on investment, and also how much you need to invest before having the solution. But there are plenty of things that you can do. Like you have forecasting, you can increase accuracy to reduce cost, for example, or automate some of our work. We can have like churn that we can work on in the SaaS businesses. And there are multiple use cases, and sometimes there would be unique across different companies, but also there are a lot of those use cases that are pretty common for different businesses because they affect certain functions. And this is something that you can apply pretty easily. That's also, you kind of need to know what are those use cases, I guess. And I remember one of the examples that in the days when we were working in the consulting companies, usually you were coming to this big company and they were saying, oh, you cannot apply this, you cannot apply that because we are super complex and it wouldn't work in our case. But actually, after you do it, it turns out that it works,
Mm-hmm.
because you have those common solutions, common problems that you can apply. And it's great to be aware of what is the spectrum of the AI solutions and use cases that would help you figure out what you can do, right? You need to have this idea.
Obviously, I mean, the use cases is just another step, and you need to compare, kind of cross it with the data that you might or might not have, right? You have a nice use case that is directly related to your KPI, but it's also necessary to look at the cost side or to implementation part of that solution now to see whether we have the data or not. Maybe we need to acquire it. What are the typical solutions in that use case? How complex they are to then maintain, and etc., etc. But you look from the value tree, so you know what is your cost base in marketing, for example, and just then you can have that direct comparison of the money you will spend on the solution against the potential ROI on that specific use case that you will get, because you improved your marketing spends. You saved 100K, but you spent 200K for the solution and the data, right? So it doesn't make sense. If it's nice, if it's so nice, you
get, for example, the biggest buckets, right?
Exactly.
Or like when improving something by 2% works. I think we can slowly conclude, right?
Yeah.
This is so we need to think about it in terms of this value tree. And I guess when you are thinking about those initiatives and when you think about different data projects that you can do within your company, think about all the domains, think about those levers that you can pull, and think about use cases and solutions that can solve your business problems.
Exactly. And there's one more thing. When you do that, when you go through your whole organization and you have that assessment, you need to also be equipped with knowledge on what sort of problems you can use with machine learning and what sort of problems you cannot use with machine learning. And this is something that we'll discuss in the next episode.
Yep. So you have a small hint about what's going to happen next. So hopefully you'll wait for our next episode when we'll be discussing those different ML use cases and how to find them. So thank you for staying with us today, and see you in a bit.